We're going to turn now to the future Queen consort, Camilla. She's given a rare interview about her life with Prince Charles and how she has learned to cope with criticism after decades in the spotlight.
Camilla's gearing up to take on her biggest role yet, and she says it's now, at age 75, that she knows herself better than ever.
It started with a quiet conversation and ended with Queen Camilla in tears. What could King Charles possibly have said that left her so shaken? The answer isn't what you might expect.
For what it's worth, I've gone on for years about the importance of thinking about the long term in relation to the environmental damage, the climate change, everything else.
Behind palace doors, a bold plan was taking shape, one that could rewrite the future of the monarchy. And at the heart of it all, a bond between brother and sister that runs deeper than duty. Charles and Anne have always had a unique bond, according to a former royal household employee, just because they were raised in the same royal bubble. Anne took the opposite stance from other royals who have opted to distance themselves from the public eye. She jumped right in and handled her royal responsibilities seriously, attending numerous occasions annually and never seeking attention, but simply carrying out her duties. Her diligent demeanor reflected Charles's own beliefs about duty and devotion in many respects. Moreover, their mutual sense of duty has only strengthened them over time, despite the highs and lows they have both experienced, including a great deal of public censure and personal difficulties. Anne's honesty is what truly strengthens their bond. Even with the king, she has never minced words. Even if it wasn't what Charles wanted to hear, she spoke up whenever she had something to say. According to those close to the palace, he genuinely admires her for it and frequently turns to her counsel at trying times. In the family, Anne also served as a mediator, particularly when Charles and his boys became at odds. She intervened with cool-headed counsel that made it easier for both parties to agree. Anne also became one of the few individuals Charles could really rely on as he began to experience health issues and consider the future of the kingdom. Although Queen Camilla has consistently supported him, Anne was the one who truly knew what it meant to bear the burden of royal responsibility. She had a special bond with Charles since they were raised in the same world and had similar expectations. Their bond was based on quiet understanding and shared obligations. He felt braver because of her backing and realized he could discuss anything with her without fear of how it would be perceived. However, what obstacle was so significant that it forced King Charles to tell his sister about his last wish? Despite having endured many hardships over the ages, the British monarchy recently underwent a particularly difficult period. The palace disclosed in early 2024 that King Charles III had received a cancer diagnosis more than a year earlier. Initially, they just indicated that he had an enlarged prostate, but as he was being treated, the physicians found that he had cancer. The country was shocked by this news. After all, following Queen Elizabeth's protracted reign, people were still getting used to Charles as king. At the age of 76, Charles was the oldest person to ever ascend to the British throne, and he was still adjusting to his new position while battling a very personal battle. Shortly later, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, revealed that she had also received a cancer diagnosis. Following a procedure, doctors discovered evidence of the illness, and they recommended that she start prophylactic chemotherapy. Later on, she acknowledged that she was only beginning that treatment. People all around the nation and the world were devastated by the news. Catherine was viewed by many as a stable, contemporary member of the royal family. She naturally took a break from her royal responsibilities to concentrate on her recovery because she had 3 little children at home. People missed the serene, comforting presence she always brought to royal functions, and her absence was greatly felt. Other members of the royal family had to take over while Catherine was away. Both Queen Camilla and Princess Anne assumed considerably greater duties. Already regarded as the most diligent royal, Anne intensified her formal responsibilities. Additionally, Queen Camilla, who had previously been the target of much public criticism, started to exhibit fresh strength. She began to gain the respect of people who had previously questioned her, and her support for Charles and the monarchy grew more evident than before. It was quite amazing how she went from being a divisive figure to a dependable, essential presence during a crisis. Prince William was juggling a lot at the same time. He was attempting to support his wife and children during a difficult time for the family, while juggling his increasing duties as a senior royal. There was a lot of strain on him, according to those who know the royal family well. Rumors began to circulate regarding potential changes to the royal lineup, suggesting that something might be about to happen. King Charles was fighting his own struggle in silence behind the imposing walls of Buckingham Palace. He avoided the typical royal attention and kept things low-key. His cancer treatment was not easy, according to those close to him. He needed days of rest in between his weekly hospital stays. He initially had no desire to slow down. He thought that taking a break appeared to be a sign of weakness. However, the palace team believed that mentality was actually impeding his recuperation. Charles eventually realized that taking a break was a show of strength rather than weakness. The only way he could deal with what he was dealing with was to give himself time to recover. The king insisted on carrying out his primary duties despite the advice of his physicians to reduce them. He signed all the important documents, continued to meet with ambassadors and prime ministers, and kept abreast of government developments. He toiled through the notorious red boxes full of official documents even on days when he wasn't feeling well, which is evidence of his intense commitment to the job despite the difficulties he was facing behind the scenes. Even though he took great effort to maintain his public persona, many close to him saw glimmers of his weaker side. One participant recalled entering his room during a particularly difficult week of therapy. He was clearly exhausted as he leaned on his desk. For an instant, he appeared to be a man confronting his own mortality, rather than the monarch. He hosted a diplomatic gathering later that day, appearing calm, although clearly not feeling well. Queen Camilla stood at his side during all of this. In order to be present for him during hospital visits and treatments, she adjusted her own royal itinerary. According to royal family friends, she discreetly changed her own plans to be available whenever he needed her. In private, Charles began to express his worries about the future of the monarchy. He talked about how much the crown was weighing on his shoulders during hospital trips. These discussions brought up difficult issues that the family has largely shied away from up until now, such as who would continue the monarchy's legacy. What about Prince William then? Was he capable of handling the pressure? Naturally, everyone's attention turned to Prince William as King Charles's health issues gained greater attention. He was stepping up, and others noticed it quickly. He was no longer merely standing by as the next person in line. He was already behaving like a future king in many respects. According to royal insiders, William has been subtly assuming more and more responsibility ever since Charles began to distance himself from public life. Although he and Catherine continued to occasionally attend the glitzy occasions, William had also taken on the less glamorous everyday duties, many of which had previously been performed by his father. He started attending significant official events, presiding over meetings, and representing the monarchy both domestically and abroad. He was gradually growing in size and importance within the monarchy. Family members claim that William was now making important decisions behind closed doors that the king would have typically made personally. When it comes to leadership, those who work with him describe him as composed, considerate, and logical. He also has a keen sense of popular sentiment. William listens carefully to what people have to say and works to keep the royal family engaged with the world. He makes an effort to keep the monarchy relevant and grounded by frequently visiting local communities and paying attention to what people have to say. His ability to combine tradition with a more contemporary touch has impressed many at the palace. He has already begun planning significant royal functions, charitable endeavors, and state trips, laying the groundwork for what may turn out to be a very different kind of king in the future. Previously, the monarch was in charge of these responsibilities, but when Charles retreated, William took over, and he did it with assurance. He's shown his ability to work under pressure, handle delicate situations, and unite individuals when things seemed uncertain. People began to notice that William's demeanor had changed. He was emerging as a leader in his own right and was no longer merely viewed as the obliging son or the titled prince. The public's response was largely favorable. People began to take notice of his actions and words. Reporters gathered at the palace reported a noticeable change in William's confidence, particularly as he became more active in determining the monarchy's future. William had quietly assumed a larger role, particularly in collaborating with the administration, according to those who are familiar with the inner workings of the palace. Official briefings were now available to him, and he even had regular meetings with influential political figures. Even though he wasn't yet king, he was already being treated with the same gravity and deference. He had developed into a vital member of the royal household's backroom staff, and his family had a significant role in all of this. William and Catherine demonstrated to the world what a stable, committed, and cohesive royal couple could look like. Their private lives and public service were well balanced. They demonstrated that they could manage royal duties without drawing attention to their family, whether they were attending functions or spending time with their kids. Their solid collaboration provided individuals with peace and optimism at an uncertain time. In everything he did, William was already behaving like a future king, according to many. He was managing the mounting pressure with genuine courage and grace, according to everyone in the palace, including outside royal observers. He appeared prepared to move the monarchy in a new path while yet honoring the customs that came with the throne. Despite King Charles's continued formal authority, William's presence and leadership had begun to have a significant influence, not only now, but also in the future. Before we discuss the king's heartfelt plea, it's important to briefly review Prince William's early years and the beginning of his journey. William was born in St. Mary's Hospital in London on June 21, 1982. He was Prince Charles and Princess Diana's first child. The young prince had no name at first. The news reports referred to him as the royal baby. Charles was so thrilled to become a father that he remained by Diana's side throughout the birth. His grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, was still in power at the time. His full name, William Arthur Philip Lewis, was revealed to the world by Buckingham Palace on June 28, about a week later. Under the direction of Archbishop Robert Runcie, he was christened on August 4 in the music room at Buckingham Palace. His great-grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, was also 82 on that day. It was almost a century since a Prince and Princess of Wales had given birth to a child. Therefore, his birth was historic. William became the first royal baby to travel abroad when he was just 9 months old, accompanying his parents on a royal tour of Australia and New Zealand. After William's younger brother Harry was born in 1984, the two of them divided their time between Highgrove House in Gloucestershire and Kensington Palace in London. Diana, their mother, had a unique nickname for William as well, Wombat. William's family nicknamed him Wills, while Harry lovingly referred to him as Willie. Diana wished to expose her youngsters to the world outside of castles. She allowed them to dine at McDonald's, brought them to hospitals and shelters, and took them to theme parks like Walt Disney World. She wanted children to develop compassion and to comprehend the challenges of real life. Biographers claim that although William was an active child, boarding school subsequently caused him to become more reserved and introspective. Diana began to rely on William emotionally as he grew older, particularly in trying times. She frequently confided in him about her feelings and even referred to him as her little wise old man. When William traveled to Llandaff, Wales on St. David's Day in 1991, it was his first time appearing in public. He and Harry traveled to Canada with their parents the same year. In 1998, they made another trip, this time with Charles alone. However, the official divorce of William's parents in 1996 marked one of the most significant turning moments in his life. It was the start of a new chapter that would mold him into the person he is now. Then came the devastating moment that nobody anticipated. Princess Diana lost her life in a vehicle accident in Paris early on August 31, 1997. The globe was rocked by the news. People were devastated, and there was an incredible outpouring of sadness throughout the UK and beyond. William was only 15 years old when it occurred, and he was at Balmoral Castle with Harry and their father. Charles sat them down and delivered the heartbreaking news the following morning. The two lads were in utter confusion and disarray. Nobody truly understood how to support them throughout such a traumatic experience. Whether William should accompany his mother's coffin to the funeral was a major controversy at the time. Eventually he did, walking with his father, brother, Grandpa Prince Philip, Uncle Charles Spencer, and others from Kensington Palace to Westminster Abbey. One of the most memorable events in royal history was that silent, agonizing walk. William later acknowledged that it took him a long time to even start thinking about her passing. He still feels the irreparable void left by her passing in his life. The majority of their mother's £12.9 million bequest was given to William and Harry when they turned 30. The sum increased as a result of wise investments, and by 2014, each of them had received about £10 million. Many of Diana's personal belongings, including her wedding gown, jewelry, sentimental letters, and priceless artwork, were given to them in addition to the cash. They even received the original sheet music and lyrics of Candle in the Wind, the song that was played during her funeral. It was disclosed in 2002 that the brothers would also get an additional £4.9 million upon turning 21 from trust assets established by their great-grandmother. Additionally, they were scheduled to split an additional £8 million by the time they turned 40. Let's now discuss William's gradual transition into royal duties. He became a counselor of state at the age of 21, allowing him to substitute for the Queen in an emergency. When she was away to a Commonwealth meeting in 2001, he did it for the first time. He embarked on his first solo royal tour in July 2005, visiting New Zealand and participating in World War II remembrances. It was even suggested that he would one day succeed his father as Governor-General of Australia. Former diplomat David Manning became William and Harry's advisor after the Queen established a private office for them in 2009. In 2010, Manning traveled with William to Wellington and Auckland, where he visited a Maori chief and launched a new courthouse. Even more positively welcomed than Diana's 1983 visit, that tour was a huge success. Following a severe earthquake in 2011, William traveled to Christchurch, New Zealand, to attend a memorial service on behalf of the Queen. He also traveled to regions of Australia affected by flooding. All of this took place prior to the start of his actual military service. William tried a few internships to obtain a feel for working life outside the palace, including 3-week stays at Lloyd's of London, the London Stock Exchange, and the Bank of England. To prepare for his prospective position overseeing the Duchy of Cornwall, he enrolled in a brief executive agricultural management course at Cambridge in 2014. William discreetly finished a 3-week placement with MI5, MI6, and GCHQ in 2019, according to Kensington Palace, where he gained practical experience with the UK's intelligence services and learned about cybersecurity and counter-terrorism. When he enrolled at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst in 2006, his military career formally began. He completed a rigorous 44-week officer training program and was commissioned into the Blues and Royals Regiment. Despite the Queen's approval for him serving on the front lines, he chose not to travel to southern Iraq due to safety concerns. Rather, he trained with the Royal Air Force and Royal Navy. He then served with the RAF at Cranwell after rising to the rank of pilot officer and sub-lieutenant. He even made the emotional and humble decision to fly to Afghanistan in order to return the body of a fallen soldier. Britannia Royal Navy College is where he also finished his training as a Navy officer. He participated in a significant cocaine bust in the Atlantic in 2008 while aboard HMS Iron Duke, which resulted in the seizure of drugs valued at £4 million. William became a full-time member of the RAF the following year and was promoted to flight lieutenant. He trained with the Special Forces and the Search and Rescue Unit to fly helicopters. He graduated from the Defense Helicopter Flying School in 2010 and gained experience piloting Sea King helicopters. Another significant addition to his increasing list of royal firsts was that he became the first British monarch to reside in Wales since Henry VIII. In October 2010, William flew on his first search and rescue mission. After saving 2 sailors from a sinking ship in the Irish Sea, he was already in the news a year later. Given the history of the area, Argentina took issue with his 6-week stationing in the Falkland Islands at the beginning of 2012. However, William was eligible to become a Sea King captain by June of the same year. He participated in an amazing 156 missions and assisted in the saving of 149 lives before his active military duty ended in 2013. In recognition of his ongoing support for the military, he was soon chosen patron of the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. William took on a completely new career in 2015 when he joined the East Anglian Air Ambulance as a pilot. He gave away all of his earnings to charity and gave his all at work, putting in extra hours and attending to critical medical situations. He frequently talked about how seeing suffering and grief impacted his mental health, bringing attention to a topic that isn't generally openly acknowledged, particularly among royals. The BBC even mentioned how he differed from other top royal family members due to his active involvement with the NHS. In order to concentrate more on his expanding royal responsibilities, William left his position as an ambulance driver in 2017. He didn't completely leave that world behind even at that point. In 2020, he became a patron of London's air ambulance charity, continuing his support for emergency services. He made a light-hearted remark at a charity event that demonstrated his laid-back personality. "I've had quite a medical focus lately, so I thought I'd come to an air ambulance function to escape it all." William showed his gratitude for frontline workers during the COVID-19 outbreak by offering the Kensington Palace lawn as a place for the charity's helicopters to refuel. He demonstrated his continued and genuine dedication to public service in 2023 when he became a patron of Wales Air Ambulance. But how has the world come to view William, and what has it actually been like for him to grow up in the spotlight? Prince William has been one of the most admired members of the royal family since his birth. The populace adored his charm and fine looks as a boy, frequently drawing comparisons to his father, King Charles III, when he was younger. William continued to be a favorite over the years, someone who people were interested in and looked up to. He won people's hearts all across the world as a young adult. He stood out at a period when more flamboyant, rebellious celebrities dominated the news, and many considered him as the ideal partner, calm, courteous, and subtly self-assured. But once he wed Catherine, people saw a genuine change in him. He seemed even more responsible, focused, and grounded, particularly as a father and husband. The public's regard for him only increased as a result of this new image, which seemed like a logical progression. Although he was kind and friendly, observers frequently noted that he had a quiet strength that underpinned his composed demeanor. Some even believed that he had inherited Princess Diana's fashion sense and sensibility. William made it apparent that he wasn't interested in being everywhere at once as his position within the family expanded. He concentrated on important initiatives because he wanted his work to truly have an impact. Speaking candidly about his vision for the monarchy in 2016, he stated that the royal family must continue to be relevant for the coming generation. He and Catherine established a solid, equal relationship, working together to maintain the privacy and normalcy of their family life. This harmony between responsibility and humanity has not gone ignored. Time magazine named William one of the most influential people in the world in April 2011. He was seen by many as a contemporary royal, a steady hand with a soothing demeanor. According to a significant survey, he was the most well-liked public figure in the US by August 2023. He was voted the most popular member of the royal family by YouGov in late 2022 and again in September 2023. He was still a strong favorite by April 2024. He was even listed as one of the year's best-dressed celebrities by a major British newspaper in December 2024. Now that everyone is focused on the future, let's examine King Charles's unexpected plan for the throne and the reasons Queen Camilla was moved to tears. On a soggy Tuesday afternoon, everything took place in one of Windsor Castle's most exclusive drawing rooms, the type of setting where the royal family has had intimate discussions for many years. There was a sense of peace before things changed, and the atmosphere was thick with the gentle tapping of rain against the old window glass. Then, out of nowhere, Princess Anne arrived in her trademark Land Rover, the tires cutting through the cobblestone courtyard's puddles. When staff members caught a glimpse of her determined countenance through the windows, they realized right once that something significant was happening, even though her appearance had not been planned. They recognized that expression. Anne was serious. Unaware of what was about to happen, Queen Camilla was sitting quietly by the window inside, leafing through private correspondence. The fact that Anne's visit went unannounced says volumes about her. That kind of circumvention of etiquette would only ever be used by those closest to the king. Anne came in with a purposeful silence, preferring to be straightforward rather than showy. She didn't just show up. She had made the decision to confront Camilla after a challenging and emotional medical consultation with King Charles, which had obviously altered everything. On a pair of old seats that had been used to store generations' worth of royal secrets, the two women sat opposite one another. Anne conveyed her brother's message in a calm, straightforward, and unadorned manner. Even though the meeting was only 20 minutes long, the atmosphere in the castle changed almost instantly. Shortly after, Camilla was sitting in quiet, wiping her eyes with a handkerchief embroidered with her initials when a lady-in-waiting arrived with tea. With her back to the room, Anne had shifted to the window and was looking out into the rain. There was a clear feeling that something permanent had occurred. Queen Camilla appeared as though something had been stealthily removed from her, and the staff also observed it. It was more than a private conversation. It was a watershed moment that would have long-term effects for the royal household. In the meantime, Charles and Anne had one of their most open discussions yet in the king's private study at Highgrove House, which was lined with watercolor paintings and decades' worth of treasured family photographs. He was candid about what he hoped might happen in the future. He wanted Prince William to take over as leader now, while he was still living and could mentor him, rather than sometime in the future. This went beyond simply shifting responsibilities or making short-term adjustments. A far more important request had been made by Charles: a regency arrangement. In this arrangement, Charles would keep his title, but William would effectively take on the role of king, handling daily duties. Since King George III's reign more than 200 years ago, the UK had not witnessed such a move, and even then, it was because of illness and confusion. However, Charles made his choice with keen insight and foresight. He had concluded that tradition was no longer sufficient for the monarchy. It required vitality, pertinence, and a deep link to the modern world, all of which he believed William could provide more easily. Charles was prepared to put the institution's long-term future ahead of his own legacy after more than 70 years of waiting to hold the throne. The goal was to move aside just enough to make the changeover easier and more intelligent, not to step down. An act motivated by duty rather than ego. Despite being private and discreet, the choice had far-reaching effects. It demonstrated Charles's great dedication to serving and to building a more resilient royal family in the future. In his opinion, William was prepared, and Charles wanted to assist him transition into the job gradually, using encouragement rather than coercion. The message was given with quiet strength by Anne, who has always been the dependable and devoted sister. And as Camilla heard it for the first time, she could feel the world beginning to shift. The change in duties wasn't the only thing that caused her to cry. She also realized that the regal destiny she had envisioned would not actually materialize as she had anticipated. Following that modest but impactful meeting, a lady-in-waiting later described what she witnessed. Shortly after Anne had left, she entered the room and discovered Queen Camilla sitting quietly with one hand over her mouth and tears running down her cheeks. However, these were not merely melancholy tears. Rather, they were the result of a tidal surge of emotions that had unexpectedly overcome her. Camilla had been by Charles's side for years, enduring criticism from the public and personal assaults. She was more devastated than anyone could have guessed to learn that their time together as rulers would be limited. Camilla could be heard repeating the same sentence almost like a silent lament inside the seclusion of the royal walls. She was grieving for Charles as much as for herself. Just as he had finally ascended to the throne, the man who had waited almost his whole life to become king was now getting ready to step down. There was a lot of emotion in the moment, a mix of shock, anguish, and silent resignation. Camilla maintained a calm exterior despite her inner turmoil. However, people close to her disclosed that in the days that followed, she had multiple breakdowns. She did not, however, crumble beneath the burden of everything. She instead immersed herself into her work, agreeing to take on additional royal responsibilities, even though she was aware that they wouldn't alter the course of events. She would continue to give it her all, even though there was nothing she could do to change the decision that had already been made. She started speaking with constitutional scholars behind the scenes in an effort to have a better understanding of how her job would change in this novel new dynamic. She was becoming into a bridge, a link between a monarch gradually withdrawing and a prince getting ready to advance, rather than merely the queen consort assisting a reigning king. Later, a royal historian described how Camilla had become essential to bridging 3 generations. During Charles's treatment, she became even more visible in the public eye and showed her support for him. Being well aware that her daughter-in-law would soon be responsible for a far larger portion of royal duties, she also started teaching Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Catherine was still taking a vacation from her official responsibilities at the moment, but Camilla, anticipating what was coming, took the initiative to discreetly lead her behind the scenes. There were only modest, encouraging actions and a willingness to assist in preparing her for the future position. No big announcements. Later, a close friend of the royal couple acknowledged that Camilla had been surprised by how fast events had developed. However, she refrained from letting her astonishment develop into resentment. Rather, she reaffirmed her commitment to the institution, not simply to Charles. Her affection for him developed into something more, a determined effort to preserve his honor and guarantee the monarchy's stability in the future. With these subtle yet significant changes taking place, many are now wondering if Prince William is really prepared to assume this huge responsibility. Let's examine more closely how responsibility, compassion, and a resolute desire to change the world have influenced his life. William appeared to realize early on that being a royal entailed duties well beyond the extravagance and grandeur that the term is typically associated with. He carried the burden of expectation as the eldest son of King Charles III and Princess Diana, and he did so with a seriousness that subtly influenced his public life but didn't always garner headlines. William never took part in the ostentatious royal way of life. Instead, he remained grounded and established a reputation for being sincere and considerate. People who have worked with him frequently characterize him as someone who wants his actions to have an impact and who listens more than he talks. He has concentrated on causes that have the potential to bring about significant, long-lasting change. William has supported a number of profoundly important causes throughout his adult life, such as homelessness, mental health, conservation, and wildlife protection. He has always had a connection to that last issue in particular. According to friends, William had a personal connection to the suffering of those without homes even as a young boy. And he didn't merely make fleeting appearances for the cameras or throw money at the problem. William spent time talking to people, listening to their tales, and visiting shelters. He was adamant that homelessness was a pressing issue that should be addressed immediately because it might affect anyone at any time. One of his most recognizable endeavors is his long-standing partnership with Centerpoint, a nonprofit organization that assists young people experiencing homelessness. He did more than simply grin and shake hands when he visited. He spent hours attempting to gain a better understanding of what life was like on the streets, joined workers on outreach walks, and got his hands dirty in kitchen shifts. He brought an unusual kind of genuineness to these encounters, observers noted. He wasn't acting. He really did care. William once remarked, "It seems sense that seeing anything traumatic will have an impact on you. Everybody is human. Everyone has feelings, and it's okay to feel depressed, anxious, or overwhelmed by life's experiences." With that kind of attitude, it's evident that Prince William has always seen his position as a means of supporting people in their most difficult times rather than merely as a duty. And his strategy might be just what the future requires at a time when the monarchy itself is quietly changing. Particularly in recent years, Prince William has emerged as one of the most outspoken royal advocates for mental health awareness. He co-founded the Heads Together initiative with his wife, Catherine, with the goal of reducing the stigma associated with mental health issues. They were more than simply symbolic leaders. They took action and changed the way that emotional health is discussed in the UK. They were constantly thinking about Heads Together Part 2, as William described it. But even when considering the initial attempt, the campaign had already caused a change in the country. Talking about mental health had become commonplace, which was no minor accomplishment. William and Catherine understood the profound impact stigma has on individuals, particularly males, who are frequently advised to maintain their composure and conceal their true emotions. In an effort to make it simpler for people to get treatment without feeling ashamed, they promoted open discussions about anxiety, depression, and other prevalent mental health conditions through Heads Together. His team made it apparent that tackling mental health required more than merely sending checks or starting awareness programs. It also required altering the way society speaks and thinks. William supported new initiatives that offered more focused help for youth, improved training for frontline staff, and free mental health resources. It was a comprehensive strategy that demonstrated that he was not only engaged, but also invested. However, William has been devoted to preserving the environment in addition to people. He spent his early years exploring forests and taking in the scenery, which sparked his early love of the outdoors. He was motivated to take significant action as an adult by that early relationship. He established the Earthshot Prize in 2020, a daring worldwide program aimed at identifying and supporting the most innovative solutions to improve the Earth. The Earthshot Prize was a call to action rather than only a trophy. In order to address major concerns like air pollution, ocean health, and our use of natural resources, William gathered together scientists, inventors, environmentalists, and communities from all around the world. The message was unambiguous: optimism remains. For William, Earthshot served as a means of motivating not only action, but also hope. In particular, he wanted young people to understand that there is still time to undo the harm. His leadership here shown that he is not only forward-thinking but also creative and purposeful in his planning, prioritizing teamwork over self-interest. William has also had a strong passion for protecting wildlife. The illegal trade in endangered animals is a genuine and severe concern that he has taken on as president of United for Wildlife. Under his direction, the group forged alliances with banks, tech firms, and law enforcement to break up the criminal networks that underpin this destructive sector. He felt that conserving wildlife was important for the future, biodiversity, and balance of the world, not simply for the sake of the creatures. His efforts demonstrated that conservation is a global concern. It has strong ties to justice, economics, and global health. William never lost sight of the smaller, more intimate moments, even when the world witnessed his participation in significant initiatives and accolades. He frequently went to local schools, military installations, and children's hospitals, not for photo ops, but because he felt that it was important to be present. He was pleasant, inquisitive, and truly compassionate, according to all who met him. He made individuals feel heard by posing questions that demonstrated his research. Deep impressions were made by even the slightest actions, such as remembering a child's name or following up after a visit. A lot of stuff was done in silence. With the support of William and Catherine's Royal Foundation, they were able to focus on long-term fixes rather than fleeting campaigns. Furthermore, William in particular wanted to avoid drawing attention to himself during several of his visits. Understanding the true problems was more important than making headlines. Charity employees frequently remarked on how William would return, check in, and continue to be involved with causes that he supported. He wasn't the sort to drop in and disappear. Regardless of who he was meeting, he established respect and trust. Eventually, his deeds became more powerful than words. People viewed him as someone who cared enough to be present when it mattered, in addition to being a potential king. Additionally, William began doing an increasing amount of the heavy labor as the royal family subtly started to change. A silent metamorphosis was happening behind the scenes. Many were shocked when William took on new responsibilities as King Charles dealt with health issues. William was obviously getting ready for something considerably bigger, even if it wasn't revealed with any fuss. He started to play a bigger part in representing the monarchy in meetings, decisions, and leadership, in addition to ceremonial. The royal household's tone gradually started to shift. William was beginning to take charge and was no longer merely the heir. And for a lot of people, it was the first genuine look at what the monarchy might look like in the future. Prince William was subtly taking on a far more important role inside the monarchy, despite the fact that the public primarily saw him at formal occasions and royal engagements. Many were taken aback by his increasing responsibility, but he handled them with calm assurance and unwavering resolve. The royal household was undergoing some significant adjustments behind the scenes, changes that went well beyond the customary titles and ceremonies. William's leadership was starting to show, and it all started when King Charles's health problems made it necessary for someone to assume command. William took on that role without any fanfare. This small change signaled the start of something new. The public gradually started to see a new side of him. He was actively contributing to the advancement of the kingdom and was no longer merely the next-in-line prince. Even while he maintained his composure and soft-spoken demeanor in public, there was a noticeable change among those in the palace. William was taking on a leadership role out of preparation rather than coercion. His growing responsibilities were subtly altering the royal family's operations. The choices he was now making were influencing daily activities in the home and establishing a new routine in which William was respected and actively involved. Insiders claimed that the royal staff had begun to show him the respect that is typically shown to a monarch. He was now viewed as the one who was truly bringing about change rather than just the heir. William had started to welcome ambassadors, chair confidential council meetings, and supervise duties that King Charles had previously performed. Even though Charles was still the king in name, this change in duties had begun to reshape the everyday operations of the monarchy. William had actual authority under the new system, even if the king still had to be involved in important ceremonial and customary matters. There had never been a delicate balance like that in contemporary royal history. The circumstance, according to experts, is completely unusual. William had to use caution, discernment, and constraint because he was leading from under the shadow of an occupying ruler. And he had been doing precisely that up to this point. Both inside and outside the palace, he was praised for his ability to navigate this unfamiliar environment while honoring his father's role and taking decisive action when necessary. This was also reflected in public opinion. Many people in Britain were impressed by William's ability to assume the role of leader with dignity and purpose. According to surveys, more and more people, particularly those in younger generations, were in favor of him taking on a more active role. He felt more connected to contemporary viewers because of his easygoing, grounded manner. He was not just viewed as a royal icon, but also as a person attempting to change the world. But not everyone accepted the change with ease. The older generations were more apprehensive because they loved tradition. Changing the order too soon seemed dangerous to them. They were concerned that rather than modernizing the monarchy, breaking with centuries-old traditions might make it weaker. The royal family was torn between attempting to honor its history and recognizing the pressing need to change for the better. This was one of the biggest changes since Edward VIII abdicated the monarchy in 1936, according to observers. However, this change was not characterized by scandal or controversy, in contrast to that momentous occasion. Rather, it subtly demonstrated that the monarchy might change, that authority may be delegated even before a reign was formally over, if doing so would maintain stability. However, this change was not warmly received by everyone in the palace. The change grieved Queen Consort Camilla. The idea of resigning struck her hard after years of her life devoted to royal service, enduring public criticism, and putting forth a lot of effort to appease detractors. According to friends and relatives, she felt as though all of her work had been forgotten, as though her efforts were being subtly disregarded. Camilla had been by Charles's side for years, working hard to support not only her husband but also the throne. And now, as the balance of power slowly changed, she was forced to face the agonizing fact that, in spite of everything she had done, she was being asked to back off. However, she was now being subtly removed from the limelight. Although the transformation didn't happen all at once, it proceeded swiftly once it occurred. Camilla's role changed virtually immediately when King Charles formally resigned and gave Prince William the responsibilities of the throne. She continued to hold the title of Queen Consort, although she became much less visible in public. Some of the areas she had previously had access to were abruptly closed, and her influence over palace choices diminished. She was no longer assured of her position at the heart of royal life. Those who witnessed her said she made a concerted effort to maintain her composure throughout this trying period. She continued to help King Charles when necessary and attended formal gatherings. However, her once confident facial expressions now had a hint of stress. She was no longer as powerful or influential as she once was. Her thoughts appeared to be less and less important, rather than influencing relationships and policy behind the scenes. According to people close to the palace, Camilla found this abrupt decline in significance extremely difficult. Being Queen Consort had been the foundation of her identity, and now it seemed to be eroding. Almost immediately, all of the struggles she had waged to establish her position seemed to be forgotten. The royal family, meanwhile, advanced, drawing all attention to Prince William and Princess Catherine. The majority of the populace embraced this change, viewing it as a new beginning. In private, however, Camilla struggled to adapt. She missed the power, the regular meetings, and the sense of being at the center of the future of the monarchy. She was still a wife and a member of the family, but she no longer felt included in the future. The headlines stopped mentioning her. The work she had previously supported was no longer in the news. She had formerly played a significant role in royal life, but had been pushed to the background, an observer while the younger generation took the initiative. The public soon began to admire Prince William and Princess Catherine as they assumed their new responsibilities. The palace welcomed their new attitude and started to adjust to their ideals and style. Camilla, on the other hand, who had once been so significant, was now viewed as a thing of the past. According to those close to her, she frequently thought about how quickly things had changed. It all seemed to disappear in a matter of weeks after years of work to acquire power and respect. This was a harsh and unpleasant truth for someone who had put in so much effort to gain recognition. How do you feel about the choice made by King Charles? Do you think Prince William is deserving of this position? Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your opinions in the comment section below. Watch the video on your screen before you leave for additional information.